All right, welcome back to the Defo Show. No Defo, just Luby right now here on South Florida Live. This gentleman has been coast to coast, north to south, and now resides in the Northeast, the Big Apple, covering the New York Jets and the NFL, the New York Daily News. Our good friend, we've been talking to this gentleman a long time, so happy for all of his success. One and only Antwan Staley joins us right now. Good morning, Antwan. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. All righty. So you are a big event guy, small event guy, a foodie guy. I'll start there with you, since at 12 o'clock we do Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, and you're a guy that I love checking you out on Twitter and all the socials, because you definitely have your own food opinion. What is a big game party for Antwan Staley when it comes to food?
I guess it depends on the event. I know for Super Bowl, it's always like, I made wings yesterday, and
Nice.
I had like Philly. I feel like the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, so I had some Philly cheesesteak sliders. So it just depends on the event and maybe who's playing and things of that nature too. But so it can kind of vary from event to event. But for football, it always starts with wings for me. But like I say, it could be anything, to be honest with you.
Well, you're a Carolina guy at heart. I feel like, and it's funny because we talked about this, the KC being there, KC barbecue, but those in the South, their barbecue, Carolina, Texas, is a very different kind of barbecue. Are you rub barbecue sauce off, or are you barbecue sauce on?
I like the sauce, because I think it just brings like another element to it. But also, for kids, like I think Kansas City barbecue is a bit overrated. Like I think a lot of people think I think Texas, that's probably where it starts for me.
Yep.
Texas barbecue is probably number one for me, and then it's easy to say North Carolina because I am from there, but I probably would have that like second to third. Like I think Tennessee barbecue is very
Interesting.
underrated as well. Like especially Memphis,
Yeah.
they specialize in it. I think Alabama has some pretty good barbecue too. I think a lot of people kind of sleep on them as well. So yeah, I definitely think Kansas City barbecue is good, but I don't think it's like the best out there like some people think it is.
I like it, but yes, most barbecue aficionados, and they will say they're not turning their nose up as they're turning their nose up at Kansas City barbecue. All right, so let's get into the game last night. I'm sure you were riveted by it. It was highly contested until the end, and then there was some people in an uproar. Before we get to the call that everyone had some kind of an opinion on, what were your thoughts on the game at large?
Oh, I think it was a great game. I thought it was just tremendous, and both teams going blow for blow and neck, and I thought Jalen Hurts played out of his mind. I think easily could have won the MVP award if everything had been reversed as well. The man's definitely going to get paid, and he should get paid this offseason, especially in the last year of his deal. And I think Philly is in a good spot moving forward. But in the end, like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs just do their thing again. I know some people they might not have had the most talented team. I thought the Eagles team from top to bottom was better, but the fact of the matter is, when you have a generational quarterback like that, you can win any game in this league, and I think we saw that last night, even if he's less than 100%.
Well, and I've been tough on Jalen Hurts because I remember him at Alabama, and he was a great athlete and a decent quarterback. And then you saw him go to Oklahoma, and you really saw Lincoln Riley bring out the passing abilities of Jalen Hurts, but I still wasn't sure what he'd be in the NFL. And I've given him a lot of guff, and I was like, look, the way the Niners held him in check, I said, that's the blueprint. Well, yeah, the Niners are the best defense in football, and they may have a generation. You talk about generational. They may have one of those, oh, wow, this is a defense we didn't think we'd get again, and now we have it kind of defense. So, yes, if they can do that, doesn't mean everyone else can. And you saw the Chiefs' defense is solid. It's played pretty well. And Jalen Hurts did whatever he wanted last night. He was spectacular, and I've been really tough on the guy, but whether it's his legs or his arm, he did what he had to do, and he kept them in that game, even when it felt like the Chiefs were starting to pull away. The Eagles went down and got a big touchdown that really showed you this game wasn't going anywhere. So, yeah, he's not only getting paid, but it feels like he is the guy in Philadelphia. And Patrick Mahomes is who we thought he was. He struggled in Super Bowls. He did have an injury, but you saw with any offensive line in front of him, which he didn't have versus the Bucs a couple years ago, the guy's scary. And he did it all the way to the end, even on a bum ankle. And I think, and I've talked about this with Defo and our other guests and NFL agent Brett Tessler, Andy Reid, who's had some questionable moments in big games, where it was the Eagles in all those NFC title games, the Eagles in that Super Bowl versus the Patriots, the Chiefs versus the Bucks, where you saw their offensive line was struggling, but Andy Reid did not change the game plan at all. Andy Reid's had moments of struggling in big games. Last night, it seemed like that was his masterclass. Like what they did in that second half, where they turned everything around, and the Eagles, one of the second best defense, if not at times the best defense in football, looked lost, and the Chiefs went straight down and scored 3 straight touchdowns, was something you really haven't seen the Eagles face, and it was something we haven't seen from Andy Reid in a big game, if ever.
Yeah, I think what it boiled down to. I thought the Eagles did a great job. I mean, their best defense last night against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs was keeping them off the field. They kept the ball in 22 minutes, and I thought that was just tremendous. And that's part of the reason why Mahomes only had less than 200 yards passing for the entire game. And then second half, they decided, they got the ball first, went down and scored, and the fourth quarter, it was kind of reminiscent of, the game against the 49ers in the Super Bowl years ago in Miami that, the fourth quarter they were down and they just turned it around there. And they got a big kickoff return, a big punt return from, Kadarius Toney. I thought really set everything up and it's kind of changed the momentum completely of the game. But yeah, I thought Andy Reid did just a tremendous job as play calling, and Patrick Mahomes again, ball maker and all, ended up running for that 36-yard run and really set up everything. And obviously, the James Bradbury call. I hate that it kind of came down to it. I understand it. I definitely don't think. And I thought the ball was uncatchable, to be honest with you. But yeah, it definitely was some holding there. But it kind of took a luster. It made it anticlimactic at the end of the game, and I hate the game. It had to be decided in that fashion. But the fact of the matter is, he did hold it. The refs called it, and the Chiefs just held the ball, and you get no kicking that short field goal, and that was the game.
Yeah, look, that's one thing I can't fight, and I've been screaming about that call that I thought it was definitely legitimate. It soured the end. Like they were going to probably get a field goal no matter what. It was going to be 4th and 8, I guess, and it was a chip shot. But there'd be like a minute 20 to a minute 30 on the clock as opposed to 8 seconds. So yes, it changed everything. That last drive would have been very different with a minute 20 or whatever, as opposed to 8 seconds or 6 seconds, whatever it was, when the Eagles actually got the ball. And that would have added a lot more drama. And I totally understand. But like you said, Bradbury admitted he held him. So, I mean, I understand. Yes, someone in our chat line said there's holding every play. Sure. But like Deef and I talked about, look, if the holding happened on the other side of the field, in that moment, you can't throw the flag. I totally agree. But it happened to the guy that was clearly being targeted and clearly beat the defender. So what do you want? Like, what are the refs there to do but call that? It sucked that it ended that way. But the Chiefs have their second Super Bowl in 5 seasons, I guess. Mahomes now is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. It puts him in a different class as a quarterback. What was your takeaway from that going into the offseason for these two teams? Because it feels like neither of these teams is going anywhere.
I mean, the Chiefs are, as long as Mahomes is there and healthy, they continue to be there. So, but the AFC is always just stacked. I mean, Cincinnati easily could have won the AFC championship if not for, the boneheaded call, another controversial call at the end of the game, too. So, yeah, I think Cincinnati will definitely be there, especially, getting their offensive line healthy, and I'm sure they'll improve that area as well. Buffalo, I definitely think, they have some things to shore up there, but I probably would pick them third, but behind, Cincinnati and Kansas City there. So, yeah, the AFC is going to be stacked. And we'll see, beyond that, what changes happen in the free agency. But I definitely think it starts with, definitely the Chiefs, Bengals, and Buffalo, at the top in the AFC. The NFC is interesting because you definitely have the Eagles there. I definitely think they're going to stick around there. The 49ers, we'll see, with their quarterback situation. It's going to look like, I imagine Trey Lance is going to come back, and I think he'll eventually reclaim that starting job that he ended up losing, of course, when he got hurt at the beginning of the regular season. But, yeah, I definitely think him and Brock Purdy will go at it, and I think he'll probably end up eventually winning because they end up trading up so many picks to end up getting him. So I definitely think the 49ers should be right there. But then after that, it's kind of, I don't know. Minnesota, you kind of want to you kind of would have believed that Minnesota may eventually turn the corner, but their defense was just awful at times last year for the most part. So, but yes, there's a lot of questions there with after San Francisco and the Eagles in the NFC. But yeah, I definitely think both of those teams are still going to be in contention next year. And but yeah, the NFC I definitely think is a bit more of a question mark as opposed to some of the top teams, as opposed to the AFC where I feel like it's very top heavy. And then you still, AFC, you still got Justin Herbert and the Chiefs. I mean, the Chargers are going to come, and we saw what Jacksonville was able to do this upcoming year with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. So yeah, AFC is fat, and it's going to continue to be strong.
And one team and one quarterback you didn't mention is a quarterback that we're getting a lot of news out your way up there in the Northeast, out of the Big Apple, the New York Jets. Won both rookies of the year, defense and offense. Their defense became one of the best defenses in football by the end of the year. Their offense has a lot of talent. If they can get Breece Hall back, he was showing signs of being one of the better backs in football as a rookie, second-round pick. They need a freaking quarterback. Well, there's a guy in the Midwest that is ticketed to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, he's become a little strange off the field, but on the field, he still seems to have lots and lots of talent. He's just bitter and not happy, and the organization he's with seems like they're bitter and not happy. What are you hearing about Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets? It seems, if it's not a foregone conclusion, he's pretty openly talking about visiting other cities. They're pretty openly talking about being comfortable with him visiting other cities. And we know the Jets need a quarterback desperately. And they have, if anyone has stuff to trade, they have tons of picks. They have tons of young talent. They have a young coach who backed his words up by guaranteeing the Jets were not going to mess around. And they didn't. They were a game or two away from being in a playoffs without a quarterback. What are you hearing about Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets?
Well, I mean, but what it boils down to, it's up to him and what he wants to do. Nobody knows what he wants to do.
Okay.
I mean, because he, first of all, does he want to play next year, which I imagine he does. But, that's the one of the first decision he has to make, and definitive one. And then secondly, if he does want to play, where does he want to? Does he want to stay in Green Bay, which I think is still a possibility. I think both sides would probably want him back. That's kind of what I hear, although they would also entertain if he wants to move on too. They would be fine. They would be okay with that as well, and Green Bay would end up starting over. Or does he want to decide to go somewhere else? And if he does, then it's not just the Jets that he could go to. The Raiders are also going to be looking for a quarterback. As they're going to be going to cut Derek Carr very shortly, if not today, if tomorrow, because he would be owed the big time guarantee if he's on the roster, after tomorrow. So yeah, I definitely think the Raiders are definitely in the midst there. Obviously, Devontae Adams, his friendship there with Rodgers, and the two can link back up once again. Out in Vegas there. No state tax there in Nevada, so I'm sure that plays a little bit of role. And Aaron Rodgers, he lives out in the California area throughout the off season, so also another benefit. And he's from California, but yeah, I know the Jets would definitely love to have Aaron Rodgers, but again, they don't necessarily know what he wants to do, so they need to make a decision. If Derek Carr becomes available, which he will be in the next couple of days, do you wait on Aaron Rodgers to come out, his darkness to retreat? Or do you also, decide, Derek Carr's going to be available? Why not just, bring him in for a visit, talk to him, and see if you might want to, land on him at the quarterback position and not wait? Because you got to get one of the two, I believe, for it to be a successful offseason. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think it would be an upgrade if they were to get him too, but we also know that he has history of not being able to stay healthy. So if you end up getting Garoppolo, and you still at some point may have to go back to Zach Wilson, who they plan on keeping and still developing next year. And we kind of saw Zach still, his confidence was shaken at the end of the last year. Did not play well when he was under center. So I definitely think if you can get you get Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers, it will be a successful all season. Other than that, it's still a lot of questions with the Jets in that quarterback position if they're not going to be able to get one or the other.
Well, and then you answered a lot of the questions I was going to ask, but you covered not only the NFL, whether it was the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Jets, but you've covered a lot of college football, both down here and out west. So you probably had an eye on Zach Wilson in college. I didn't see him as a second overall pick, but I also didn't see him as a guy that would be a total bust either. You saw him this year. Look, they need to upgrade the quarterback position clearly, but I'm also intrigued because I thought that meant that you're now writing off a Zach Wilson. Like in this day and age, when you draft a guy that high, he plays or he sucks. Like it feels like there's no middle ground where you go old school with like Neil O'Donnell and McNair or Kitna and Carson Palmer. Like usually the young guy plays, he's good, he goes forward, he's not good, he's gone. But it feels like the Jets are in the middle somewhere where they know he's not good enough now, and they know they have a roster that actually can contend for the playoffs, possibly the Super Bowl, but they also don't want to let him go either. So you saw Zach Wilson. Like, did you see enough positives that he can still, because Carr's a little older now, right? Like Carr might not be there for the next 6 years. So maybe you could have your cake and eat it too. When you watch Zach Wilson, do you see positives? Do you see a guy that could figure it out and become a franchise NFL quarterback?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's
I really don't. I think well, it's funny at the beginning of the last year that Robert Saleh was like, that's our quarterback, no matter what. Yeah. And then as you saw the things started to change a little, even when they were winning and Zach was not playing well, they were winning in spite of his play. Yeah. He was still saying Zach is our quarterback. Like they wanted to continue to develop him. That was the whole thing. But the funny thing, and became involved, that what happened with that is the roster became much better. Went from a four.
Yep.
I mean, obviously won 4 games the year before, but I know they won 7, in 2022. But easily could have won more than that. Would have made the playoffs, and they had better quarterback play. But what ended up happening, especially after the Patriots game, the second Patriots game, and Zach Wilson did not play well at all, and the Jets should have won, and everybody knew it. And they lost because of Zach Wilson, and then the lack of accountability that he had.
Yep.
So that kind of like, okay, we have to make a change because we don't want to lose the team. If you'll lose this team, because of one guy. So they end up going to Mike White, and then after that, you could tell the tone just completely changed. It flipped after that to the point where they had, even if they went back to Zach, which they did against the Lions in Jacksonville. Again, his confidence was just not the same after that. So no, I don't see it. Could he become a franchise quarterback? Possibly with a good off season and some training and things of that nature. Yeah, sure, maybe. Anything can happen. With hard work and in the league there. But if you're asking me, just like a gunpoint, do I think he's going to be quarterback? No, I don't. I didn't think he should have been taken that high. I thought Justin Fields.
Yep.
He was the second best quarterback in that draft. I think they would be in a much different place if they end up having a guy like Justin Fields. So we see, he still has some questions on his own too, especially passing, being consistent there. But I feel like he's much more further along than Zach Wilson is at this point.
Before we let you go, the team that we are out of South Florida, so the team that we actually found you first covering was the Miami Dolphins. And I know you have a lot of Dolphin fan followers, and I know I'll notice you tweeting out Dolphin news here and there when you do get it or you do see it. So you do have an eye toward the Dolphins, and they are a rival in the same division as the New York Jets. Tua's doing the whole thing, and he did the interviews, and he's going to learn. And it's actually an interesting thing I've never heard someone say, but it actually does. The way he's falling and hurts him and gets hurt, it seems like it's avoidable a lot of the time. We don't see other quarterbacks hitting their head like that. He's talking about judo and other ways of learning how to handle hits better. The Dolphins looked really good for like 3/4 of the season and then struggled the last quarter, limping down the stretch, barely getting in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on the Miami Dolphins heading this offseason? Where do you see them after this offseason?
Well, I mean, definitely critical all season, for them. I mean, it's gonna be, they got an interesting decision to make with Tua. So, like, do you pick up his 5th-year option or do you not? I would not personally.
Oh, really?
Not because of his play. I mean, who he's played, he's been, really good. I mean, but for the most part, but it's just the fact that him not being available, and I definitely think you still have questions with that. So I think the best way to attack it is just don't pick up the option. See if he can stay healthy for a full year. If he can, then you could also you can franchise tag him, for his 5th year, and then bring him back once again and see if he can do it again, or you have an opportunity to look on a long term deal. So I definitely think just making that decision is first and foremost, and also I think finding a quality backup quarterback, a more quality, somebody that can stay healthy for the most part. I definitely think we talked about the Jets there. I think
Yeah.
Mike White could possibly be an option for the Dolphins at the backup quarterback position. One, Mike White's from Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah.
born and raised. I definitely think he'll be able to come back home, and we saw what Mike White was able to do. I thought he played solid football when he was healthy before the rib injury, and having him in there backing up to it, also a guy that has been it's a grinder in this league,
Yeah.
to be able to back up to it, and also probably gives us advice on the league and everything like that. I think that'd be a great move for the Dolphins as well. So having both of those guys, just assuming if something happened, were to happen to it, which history says it will,
Yeah.
have a guy in there that has experience that, feel like he can stay healthy for the most part. So I definitely think, finding that quality quarterback, and also, the Fit Fangio move. I thought that was a really good move for the Dolphins defense. They slipped last year, getting a guy who's, led some tremendous defenses around the league for years to years. I definitely think it's going to transform the Dolphins for their defense, and bring out maybe the best in a guy like a Jalen Phillips, who I definitely think is we've yet to see the best out of him. We've seen it in flashes, but I definitely think a guy like Vic can unleash him and make him maybe like a 12 sack guy once a year. So
Yeah.
I definitely think the Dolphins defense will take a turn this year, and I fully expect them possibly to be back in the playoffs once again.
Yeah, and look, and what people want to forget is it was their first year under another system. So you would think year two would be even better. Waddle, Hill. It seems like they're going to try and upgrade at the tight end spot, as Gesicki's not an all around
Yeah,
tight end, and that's what uh, McDaniel looks for. And they do need a big body receiver, and that's something that they had in Ayuk. And even Samuel, to a certain extent, for as much as he's a playmaker, he's a big, strong dude. The Dolphins don't have that. They have speed, 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 and that's great. You also need a guy that's your possession guy. And all the great offenses have it, and the Dolphins don't. So it feels like they either, if it's in the tight end spot or another wide receiver, they need to upgrade there. But it feels like they're close. And the question is Tua, can he stay on the field? And I'm a guy who defended him a lot. Even I have to question it because he hasn't. He's missed at least 4 games every year. So we'll see. This is a big year for him. Before I let you go, the big coaching move so far, and I don't see one that'll be bigger, was Sean Payton coming back. Will they, won't they? Finally did agree to become the Broncos coach. I don't know if you saw more than I saw. What I saw of Russell Wilson was a shell of himself. A lot of people are talking about them fixing Russell Wilson. I mean, he's in his 30s. We see quarterbacks play till they're in their 40s now, but it's because they're just great and they don't need to be fixed. I find it hard to believe you're going to fix a guy who's a borderline, if not a surefire Hall of Famer in his 30s. From what you saw of Russell Wilson, what you've seen of Sean Payton, what are your thoughts on that hire, and what do you think he could possibly do with Russell Wilson and the Broncos?
Well, I think when they fired Nathaniel Hackett, I mean the offense actually got better.
Yeah,
So I definitely think that's a start. But I think they can improve Russell, like some of the things there. But I think what I saw from Russell last year, I mean, he's not nearly running as much. And obviously, when you get in your 30s, then you're different, athletically, and you don't necessarily want to run all the time like you did early in your 20s. But I don't know if I think they can bring out some of the best qualities he still has, but I don't know if he's still going to be the same guy that he once was, especially considering the fact that he's gotten older. I think what can help, I think one thing that will help is getting Devontae Williams back. He's a draft pick from North Carolina years ago, ended up tearing his ACL and was out for the year. Getting a guy like that, stud at the running back position back, has definitely take a lot of pressure off Russell Wilson. So he feels like he doesn't have to run all the time. And, they got a good skill position players around. They got a really tremendous tight end, Jerry Jeudy. I really like, improving that offensive line. I definitely think it will help us tremendously. Defensively, we know they're going to still be really good. We'll see who they get out there at the defensive coordinator spot, but I definitely think they still got a good foundation to be great on defense as they were last year. But yes, it's going to come down to can Russell Wilson make those sound decisions like how he did in Seattle. If he can, then I think the Broncos have an opportunity still to make the playoffs possibly. But they play in such a tough division where You got the Chiefs, obviously. We saw what they did in the Super Bowl, the Chargers. So I don't think they're going to go anywhere, even though I think there's still questions, with
Oh,
Brandon
Staley.
Staley and some of his decision making. And we'll see what the Raiders decide to do because the Broncos couldn't even beat them last year. So they have nowhere to go but up. That's basically the best way to look at it for Denver.
So what is it for you now as season's over? You turn directly to the draft. I know you're a big college football guy, big draft guy, and the Jets should be highly involved outside the Dolphins who've traded away every pick or had picks taken away. I think the Jets are highly involved in the draft. Is that where you turn next?
Yes, the combine has started 2 weeks. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, that definitely, that'll be something, I turn my attention to. I also take time off too as well before
Nice.
that. So,
well deserved.
Yeah, definitely do that. And then free agency will be start on March 15th. So it's right around the corner. So yeah, definitely the draft, free agency, combine. Yeah, that's definitely everything. All we're looking forward to at this point. But yeah, it definitely should be another fun offseason for everybody, including the Jets, who always keeps things interesting.
they do, and this man does as well. Follow him on Twitter at Antwan Staley. He is great when it comes to football. He's a fan of all the sports. Plus, he's a foodie, has a keen eye for when it comes to barbecue, especially wings. You notice how you mentioned wings like 7 times? Antwan Staley's big on wings, and he knows his stuff, and he's a hip-hop connoisseur. So Twitter, music overall as well. So I'd follow this gentleman for sure on Twitter at Antwan Staley. And Antwan, well, I'll bring you back, hopefully talk some draft, as I know you're a big college football guy.
All right, sounds good. You take it easy.
Be well, man. Thank you so much.